to win the day, to win his agenda, to push forward on his promises that he made during the election. And he'll go have rallies, and he will give, the red meat to his conservative base, to his nationalist base, to his populist base, whatever you want to call it. And he'll use inflammatory language, and he'll come up with his, cheap little nicknames. And listen, I enjoy them for what they are, and it's polititainment. It's political entertainment for me, because I like to think I'm reasonable at least, but I like to think I have the common sense to know what's rhetoric and what's real. But those lines have been blurred by supporters on both sides. The people out there who were claiming that, the pipe bombs were a false flag in order to deter your attention from the midterm elections and Republicans surging are just as unhelpful as Antifa out there saying that, by any means necessary, we must stop Donald Trump. Both are political rhetoric that's over the top. Both are unreasonable. And yet both are tolerated right now because we have been set up into a climate created mostly, again, in my opinion, by Hillary Clinton, where the rhetoric stemming from the race has taken over our political discourse. Again, Al Gore quelled the political resentment. Hillary Clinton has stoked it to such a point where a new conservative has emerged, one that is not willing to back down, one that has been emboldened by President Trump and his populist movement and his nationalist movement and his conservative movement, and has found their backbone to not deal with the PC nonsense, the political correctness nonsense, to take a stand against that rhetoric. And that stand has been harsher than everyone on every side of the aisle has really expected. And has been responded to by even harsher rhetoric coming back again from progressives. And it builds and it builds and it builds. It builds to the point where a former campaign volunteer takes a gun and shoots a congressman. It's grown and escalated to a point where a voter and a supporter with, his own mental problems uses that, latches onto it, and in their moment of crazy, creates pipe bombs. It has escalated to a point where someone has decided to shoot up a campaign office. It's gotten to the point, folks, where it's just way too far. And we've been talking about the roles of the political parties in all this, but I got to tell you, folks, the role of the media in all this cannot be ignored as well. CNN, for instance, trying to play a victim because they were sent one of these pipe bombs, claiming that President Trump is to blame for all this. Do you think that helped CNN? Do you think that statement from Mr. Zucker over at CNN was constructive? Was it unifying? Was it meant to quell the political anger? Or was it born out of anger itself? Or was it born from some need for vengeance, for a vindictive sentiment that the left media has presented against President Trump? We can talk all day about, when they go low, kick them, and get up in the face of congressmen and confront people in restaurants and all that comes from the politicians on the left. But all that's condoned by the talking heads on the left as well. And in their zeal to blame President Trump about all this violence that's been perpetuated as a result of what I've said earlier, the resentment that brewed in 2016 that has since bubbled over now, we see a media that is out for their own pound of flesh. How many times you guys see Jim Acosta pontificating about, this isn't the way that things should be, or Chris Cuomo, or Morning Joe Scarborough, or whoever else, Brian Stetzer, the talking head of the day, April Ryan, or Joy Reid. I can keep on naming them because I watch them all the time. I watch them so that you don't have to, and I can tell you what they're doing. I know, poor me, right? But they're looking for their pound of flesh. They have a target in mind. They want to hit the mark. They want to take down the president. Because that'll show how righteous they are. That they've been right all along. It's right fighting of the worst order from everyone. Everyone's a right fighter. And if you've ever been in a serious relationship and you are a right fighter, you find out that your life is not exactly all peaches and cream. In fact, it's probably pretty miserable. And we're seeing that misery play out on the political landscape. Not only misery, but violence now coming out of that misery. It's gotten to the point where it's not the responsibility of just one person, President Trump, to come out and say enough is enough. Everyone has to come out and say enough is enough. I'm saying enough is enough. I hope you're saying enough is enough as well. We've come too far as a nation to succumb to our own vindictiveness and, for the sake of being right. If you're right, you already have might. You don't need a gun. You don't need your fist. You don't need a bottle or a knife or to steal someone's MAGA hat. If you're right, you already have might. So stand up and be right. Stand up and be counted for being right. Don't set fires to garbage cans or break windows or throw a temper tantrum or act triggered. And certainly don't go out there and shoot up buildings or shoot people, God forbid, or send out, bombs to people. That's not what we're made of. That's not what this country has ever been about. What this country has been about, as I said before, is the ballot box. And in a couple of days, we're all headed there. And let's settle our differences there. And then after those differences are settled, let's do what Hillary Clinton couldn't do. You come together with the results, no matter what they are, and you move forward as a nation, however that path may be laid out. And folks, that'll just about do it for this week's show. I guess I'll leave that as my final thought and kind of tie it all together. I want to thank you guys for listening to the show. I want to thank Pawl Bazile from the Proud Boys for coming on the show, for having the guts to come on and stand up and say, this is who we are, this is what we do. Again, I'm going to say, seek out all that first-hand information that you can about everything we've been talking about here. And I'm going to go back to something that we used to say back in our Brooklyn GOP radio days when we were just a little regional little show looking to get volunteers for campaigns. Keep thinking, keep seeking, and keep believing. This is Gene Berardelli behind enemy lines from the People's Republic of New York. It's time to shut this sucker down. Until next week, we are out of here. Good night, folks.
Our position has been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.behindenemylinesradio.us and look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. You are the resistance. Behind Enemy Lines. A rock radio production. Back in 7 days. Out.